Now, you will probably have noticed when you walked into the hotel or on the website when you registered, or even when you look at the mobile app, or my favorite, on your key card. This is great. This is really good marketing, attention to detail. You'll have seen this theme around what will you discover? And that's really at the core of what we're going to be talking about today. So I wanted to give you a little background on what we mean and what we think about in Invoca when we ask, what will you discover? For all of you who are marketers, we see you really doing two things in your job. Number one is, how do you attract new customers, new consumers, new audiences to be interested in your brand? How do you find new people that can potentially be customers for you over the long term? And then second is, how do you deliver a seamless buying experience? How do you deliver an experience where people go through and learn about your product, and if they decide to do business with you, they just say, wow, that was amazing. And it's really these two areas that you're thinking about and you're working on in your business. And when you think about attracting consumers, where that really happens is in digital, because digital advertising and digital platforms give you unparalleled reach. They give you the ability to do personalization using data so that you can literally reach hundreds of thousands or millions of prospects, but using data to personalize messaging content on a one-to-one basis. Digital gives you the ability to do measurement, to really understand what's working and what's not working, and then tune and adjust your investments accordingly. But if you're in this room today, you're working in an industry where the human touch and the human conversation is also a critical part of how a consumer becomes a customer. And you do that because human connections are emotive, because they build confidence, right? When I was out looking to get my first mortgage with my wife for our first condo in San Francisco, I could do the math to figure out which mortgage product was best for me. But I didn't have the confidence to know, is my mortgage going to close on time? Am I going to get this house that my wife and I have set our dreams on, where we want to raise our children? And so helping your consumers make decisions with confidence when they're thinking about doing business with you is really important. And the adaptability of the human to adjust on the fly, to respond to new situations and all these things. So that human touch is really, really important as you go through the process. And if you think about consumers, consumers want the ability to move between these two modes and their own choosing and their own convenience, their own volition. And so one story that I love here is Rocket Mortgage. I assume most of you have heard of Quicken Loans and Rocket Mortgage. Quicken Loans is the #1 mortgage lender in the US. And a few years ago, the team at Quicken Loans said, we want to completely rethink how you apply for a mortgage. We want to take that entire process with all those people and all that paperwork, and we want to make it so that it happens on a phone and you can do it in 7 minutes or less. And so they came out with this new offering where you could buy a mortgage, get a mortgage from your phone, which is amazing. But what is really interesting is they also, having years and years and years of experience in this business, they recognized that at any point in the process, they wanted to give their consumers the ability to reach out and have a human conversation with an expert and get expert advice. And so when you go through the Rocket Mortgage application, you're always one click away from either having a phone or a chat interaction with an expert advisor that will help give you confidence that you're making the right decision and your mortgage is going to close in time. That's what consumers want. But the challenge that you all face as marketers is that you can't connect all the digital channels where you're advertising, right? So you're advertising in search, in social, in your website, and your affiliate programs. Around mobile and around email, you're advertising, putting all this money to work there. In fact, marketers are going to spend over $400 billion in digital next year. But where you're ultimately driving sales is through these human-to-human touch points, through these calls and through these conversations. And so the challenge that you have is that you can't connect these two experiences. You're investing in advertising, but you're making money through these human connections and the touch points in the contact center. And you know, I'm sure all of you marketers have said this to your bosses or your CEO before, right? I've heard this many a time. Gregg, in marketing, you have to spend money to make money. Very popular topic during budgeting season. But if you're spending money in digital and you're making money through that human touch point, and you can't put those two things together, that argument really falls apart. And so what we're focused on at Invoca is how do we connect those data sets? How do we cross over the organizational boundaries of what you're doing in marketing and what you're doing in the contact center? How do we give you insight in a scalable way to what's happening in those powerful, emotive, one-to-one conversations that you have with your consumers without having to spend hours and hours and hours and hours a week listening to call recordings? How do we do all that in a scalable way? And that's what we've been focused on at Invoca, right? That's our mission, and that's what we're really designed to do, is connect all those things together with you and with your partners. And we give you the ability to do that so you can do a couple things. Number one is so you can get attribution, so you can do measurement in the right way. If I asked you if you like to go do a full day's work and get a half day's pay, would you be excited about that? If you're saying yes, you can find me in the back afterwards, because we have a role for you at Invoca. But many of the customers you're going to hear from today, they're spending time investing in digital, and they're not getting the credit from the organization for the impact they're having. We know when you invest in digital advertising, there's a halo effect that drives people into your stores, that drives people to call, and you're not getting credit for that. You know you're having impact in the business, and when your boss comes to you and says, what are you going to do next year? What kind of budget do you need? You're not getting the opportunity to maximize that bang for buck. So the first thing is really around closed-loop attribution. The second is around optimization. If you've got the data to tell you what's working and what's not working in digital, then let's go use that data to optimize all your digital advertising investments and have an even bigger impact so that you can drive more for your company for the exact same dollar. And then ultimately, we want to help you activate audiences. We want to help you pass data into your CDPs, your DMPs, those orchestration engines where you can retarget, you can suppress, you can personalize at scale, and really deliver the right message, not only for those customers that you're acquiring, but also when you're thinking about cross-sell and upsell and retention and all of those other aspects of the business. And I would venture to say, if you're in this room and you've been working with Invoca for 2 or 3 years, you're probably doing all 3 of these things. And we're going to have some customers today that are going to talk about all 3 of these things. But I want to challenge you to go a little bit farther, because the technology that we're going to talk about today is going to give you insights into the path of purchase that you have never had before. You've never had before. You don't sit in the contact center. You don't sit out in a distributed model with your brokers or your agents out in the field. But we've used technology to help you see what's happening. We've given you insight into what was invisible. And so what I would challenge you to do today is to think about, what does the path to purchase mean? Why do you buy from Amazon? 5 years ago, you might have bought from Amazon because the prices were really, really competitive. But I would venture to say today, the reason that we all buy from Amazon multiple times a month is because Amazon has made the buying process seamless and easy. I can get almost anything that I want that's a relatively commoditized good within a day. The path to purchase is really important. And you as a marketer have an opportunity to influence what that looks like and have a true strategic impact on your company. And to do that, however, you cannot sit in the marketing team. You cannot just sit in the marketing team and do your work within the marketing technology organization. You have to break out of the marketing silo. You have to go talk to other people in your organization. You have to go work with them in order to have that bigger company strategic impact. And I know that's scary. I know that feels odd. I know it feels strange when you hear things that are going on in the contact center to say, that doesn't sound quite right. But we're going to talk to you today about how to do that, and we're going to show you examples and let you hear from customers who have done that. Because ultimately what happens is when you're armed with insight and when you're armed with data and you can have a data-oriented conversation around your business, one person can drive a tremendous amount of change in your company and your buying experience and what your consumers can do. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to walk through 5 different customer stories. And we're going to start with Navistar and OTE. And Rosalind and Jeff are going to talk about how they were able to improve measurement and attribution across complex, multi-brand, multi-physical locations and really start to measure and begin to optimize their digital advertising spend based on what was happening offline. And then once we get to Michelle, Cody, and Rogers, and especially as we move into the second half of the session in the keynote with Will from eHealth and Noah from University Hospitals, you're going to hear about 3 different individuals in roles of marketing and analytics who did not stop within their silo. They stepped out of their silo in marketing and they had conversations with broader sets of teams in the organization to drive real fundamental change in how consumers do business with them. You're going to hear Will talk about the online and offline buying experience. You're going to hear Michelle and how she discovered that the customer care team was actually doing a lot of key cross-sell, upsell activity, and how she needed to think about helping them train to go do that. And you're going to hear Noah talk about a discussion that went all the way up to his CEO around the relationship between the marketing team and the contact center. These are 5 individuals. They're great people, but they're not superpowers, they're not superheroes. They're normal people like you and me who, armed with data and armed with conviction, went out and had a tremendous impact on their business. So that's what I challenge you to think about today. When we talk about what will you discover, if you're early in your journey with Invoca or you haven't even started yet, we want to help you discover data that can help you be a more effective marketer. But if you've been with us for a year or 2 years and you're thinking about what's the next phase, what you discover is going to be how you can have a much bigger impact on your company, around the buying experience, and something that's going to be much more fundamental to what you do.